Next, I'm helping host and moderate the sessions today. And before I pass over to Oliver to introduce the panel, there's a few bits of housekeeping. Choose to Rent, our headline sponsor, they are located sort of straight back down the aisle, so definitely do go and say hello to them. If you're hard of hearing or just want to hear the conversation a little bit more clearly, these Silent Seminars headphones are available. There are a few languages. I think we have Spanish, French, and German as well. So you can go see Megan in the blue shirt and she will help you out with that. Closed captions will be on this screen here, so if you do need to read what is being said, it is highly accurate, it's quite incredible. Do take a seat in the front row, a little bit easier to see. We've also got live Q&A. There's a QR code up there on the side, but if you also type in pigeonhole.at and use the code ETL2023, you can ask any questions, and I think I am going to throw them at you throughout the session as they come through, so definitely don't be shy. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Oliver Rowe, from the co-founder, of VenuIQ, and you're talking the tech stack for conferences. So Oliver, over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session. Hopefully you find it useful. We all on the panel have experience working with conference organisers, and we're hoping to unpick the current tech landscape for you all and look at some of the things that work well, look at some of the things that might be coming in the future, and hopefully give you some good insights from the organiser perspective. So with me, I have Emily Miller, who's Head of Marketing for Founders Forum Group, and I have Emily McNamara, who is Head of Digital, I'm getting this right, I hope, for Conference Care.
Sally, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, what did I say?
Emily.
Oh my goodness. I even have Sally in there. Never mind. I'm very, very sorry. So I think we want to start by looking at the current event tech landscape. Obviously, we're in the perfect place, right? We're at Event Tech Live. This is like the event for the UK of the year. It's been great, and happy 10th edition to Adam and the team. I think it's been a fantastic couple of days. There's so much stuff, right? There's so many things out there. What we want to unpick today is how you as an organizer get to what your stack will look like, what will do good things for you as an organizer, what will benefit your attendees. And for me, sitting from an event tech point of view, I think the human element often gets forgotten, like tech's going to solve everything, right? So I think let's start there. What have you been using? What are you seeing as emerging things that are coming out? Maybe you've seen them here, maybe it's things you've used, or things that your attendees are asking for. Emily, do you want to kick off?
Sure. So Founders Forum Group, we put on a selection of flagship forums every year. We do that mainly for entrepreneurs, and we do that in London, Singapore, New York, and Berlin. So we're bringing together top unicorn tech founders with partner-level investors from the world's top venture capital firms, government stakeholders as well, and then CEOs of FTSE and S&P listed corporations. So we're bringing those groups together, and our forums are special because they're not that large. They're actually pretty intimate events. Our largest one is 650 guests. And so they're 5-star, they're really sort of luxury, high-end events that we put on. And we use tech, and we use VenuIQ, for instance, in order to enhance that human experience on site. So everything we do is sort of guest first, and that starts with a very curated invite process that feeds into our central CRM, which is Salesforce. And we then have a stack of tech tools that we have integrated, some with a custom integration with Salesforce, in order to deliver a seamless experience for our guests, and then the simplest possible workflow and the most automated workflow for our community team. So the sort of two priorities for us are, is it really, really, really sleek? And is it something that will only enhance the experience? It's not extra admin for the guest. It's not extra chores before attending the event. It simply enhances their experience and makes it easier, so they can see the guest list, they can see the agenda in the app before they attend. When they're on site, they can track other guests on site to see where they are. That's huge for us because we don't do pre-scheduled meetings. We're all about what we call curated serendipity. And so part of that is enabling our guests to say, okay, I really want to prioritize meeting with this person on site, and I'm going to track them down on site and see where they are so I can do that. So things that are designed to bolster the experience. The other side of it would be the team workflow. What is most efficient for the team? We've seen a lot of AI-enabled tools pick up speed over the past year. And it's, we're just at the beginning of this really exciting generative AI journey. So it's using all the tools we can to mitigate manual workload for our team.
And I guess look at all the different data points that you get from the event technology and the anecdotal data and the team data that feeds into all that.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. Sally, given what Emily said, it's quite interesting. It's that human first approach, right? Because tech is great, wonderful. Sometimes it goes wrong, sometimes it works well. How do you feel about the landscape of event tech now, and maybe what's like missing, or what have you seen that could add real value?
I think, firstly, it's extremely exciting, isn't it? Like, we're living in a really, really exciting time. I think at Conference Care, we've always been human first. It's always about that human relationship. We don't want to ever take away the experience of getting to understand our customers. I think we can probably come at it from a little bit of a different angle, because each of our customers have their own customers, right? And it's our customers that are going to be best placed to understand the demographic of the people that are attending their events, and what is going to work for their attendees and their customers that are going to be attending those events. Not everybody is very tech savvy. I think it actually frightens quite a lot of people, especially in terms of use. So it's really understanding from our clients what that demographic is and how they're going to interact, and how they're already interacting with other tech stack within the company, whether that kind of be their marketing functions, with anything that they're doing for those specific clients. So, we work across corporate, we work across associations, and it's all different models, right? Who's attending? That's got to be your main question. And again, how are you going to enhance that experience for the attendee? I think, there's so much great stuff here, but my advice would be maybe to look at the functionality of it and look at how that's going to add value to the event. There's a lot of gimmicks out there, right? There always has been in every industry. And I think we need to overlook that and make sure that it's bringing the most value to those attendees, really.
Is there, and this, either of you can jump in with this one, is there any sort of emerging trends? We talked about obviously generative AI. There was a lot of talk at the Fans Forum event around AI, for example, in lots of different technical industries. But specifically for the event, is there anything that's really like, that you've seen that's going to solve that problem, or that's going to really help enhance a specific type of event? Let's appreciate, obviously, Sally, some of yours, an association event might be very different to a corporate event, for example, and obviously FF's audience are very, very specific, and they're trying to achieve certain things in the time they have with you. So is there anything that you've seen that's like, this could be a turning point now? AI being obviously the biggest, but I'm sure there's been lots of panels that have covered that over the last couple of days. Anything that jumps to mind that you've seen, other than 1994's original product, QR code, is back 30 years later and used more than ever in every part of our day, from ordering drinks to coming to an event being scanned incessantly. Anything else?
I think the most exciting thing for me recently has just been really integrating all of our communications touch points, and so building in SMS and automated SMS as well as WhatsApp, and making it really easy to cut through the noise. That's increasingly difficult as a marketer. And with events in particular, people don't tend to think about the event really until the day before. You're thinking about the event months in advance as the organizer, but their touch points are fewer and further between, and they don't necessarily have the headspace to think about it until right before. So when they're considering what is the easiest journey, and I think we've looked at some flows sort of on the back end and tools that integrate with our Salesforce that are really exciting from the perspective of okay, this completely automates chasers and any sort of reminder, and can even bring WhatsApp into that stack to cut through, obviously more conducive to certain markets than others. So
anything that removes that friction for your eventual end user that might only be with you for a day or two.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And also, I think the sophistication of tracking and heat mapping on site. So being able to see, okay, we've got simultaneous stages. These 3 are full. This one really needs some people in the audience, so we can have our team come and join. We can have our Founders Forum group rally the troops. Simple things like that, and then obviously to have those data points post-event. I think data sets are, there's a range of reliability when it comes to data sets, especially for third-party enrichment. And of course, self-reported data can kind of be gold standard, but even self-reported data has a bias. People aren't very good at, saying, this is what I'm interested in, or these are the sessions I went to. They don't really remember. Whereas behavior doesn't lie. It's, which sessions did they actually go to and which topics should we replicate. So the sophistication and just getting even closer with the parameters of tracking and how tightly you can do that on site is really exciting, and that's been consistently sort of evolving over the past couple of years.
Brilliant. Sally, anything for any particular type of customer you have?
Yeah.
Obviously it varies.
I've got a few things that are really exciting me. I think personalisation is one. So again, going back to the data, maybe harnessing that AI to really understand your customers. Again, bringing it back to that kind of human experience. The other one, anything that makes DE&I easier and events more accessible for people. I think there's a bit of a hangover. People aren't maybe as keen to travel, but also people are more conscious about their carbon footprint, about how they're actually attending and engaging with events, and how they access that content. So yeah, anything that's going to enhance that experience. So Interprify, for example, this is great to see, and I don't think that should be overlooked from an organiser perspective. You've really got to look at who's not in the room, and if there is a reason that they're not in the room, then you need to put plans in place to make sure that they would be in the room next time, or you're at least making accommodations for people. There's lots of different things that I think you've touched on some of them really well there. It's generally an exciting space to be in at the moment. Do I think that AI is going to come in and kind of take everybody's jobs in events? No, because it's all about the human experience, right? And you need that personal level. But yeah, those are two things that I'd kind of pick up on, I think.
So talking about AI, I thought for fun, because we were going to have another panellist, Matthew, who wonderfully is having a baby. Well, he's not having a baby, his wife's having a baby today, so he couldn't join us. So I thought, let's ask a third panellist, ChatGPT, what they think, because obviously that's checking like everyone in the world, right? So I asked it just before we came on, the top event technology trends of 2023 and what that might look like in 2024. See what the data points say. So, AI-driven personalised experiences. Well done, Sally. An enhanced attendee engagement through interactive tools is something they said for this year have been really popular. And they're looking into 2024. ChatGPT reckons more immersive technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality. And then obviously a continuation of more integration with AI tools and a big focus on sustainability-focused tech solutions, which is, well done panel, we've covered these things. So that's really interesting, because I think looking at some of the exhibitors here, obviously there's the new Sustainability Live part over there, which I've had a wander around. It's really interesting, some of the things they're doing. Just right down to the fact there's no carpet here. I've heard people moaning about the fact they can see chalk marks on the floor. I've heard people going, wow, this is amazing, because obviously it's just going to get chucked away after. I mean, that's so low tech, a simple thing we can all do, right, to sort of make things better. But when it comes to choosing your tech solutions for your events, your tech solutions for your customers, or advising your customers on it, what are like the common hurdles you come under? I know, Emily, you said you spent a lot of time integrating data sets, data points to give you that better view of your end user. But what are the common hurdles that you've come across when you've either looked at other technologies or other things that you, at face value, think is going to solve a load of problems, but actually when you delve into it, it doesn't, or it creates another layer of complexity? Or what are the typical hurdles you come across?
I think the most common one for us is front end versus back end. So it tends to be a trade-off where you'll have really nice UX and a really beautiful front end experience, and it's a nightmare for the team in the back end, and quite laborious. Or oppositely, you'll have full integration and it's really quite well tech enabled, but the front end, it's shocking what it's missing. So we're constantly on the lookout across, I'd say every year we review our full tech stack and look at the tools we're using and see, okay, are we using the best providers we can be to meet our needs, and constantly reassessing our needs as well. So some functionalities that we had previously in our app, even we've removed. because we've decided, it's not about pre-scheduled meetings at the moment, it's about that curated serendipity. And so we've made messaging more salient in the UX to allow for that curated serendipity to happen. But I think as we sort of go along, it is constantly looking for those solutions that are really user-friendly for both our team and the end user, and that really make the data digestible for you. There's nothing worse than sort of swimming in a sea of data points that you're like, what am I going to do with this?
I have nothing to do with this data, but it looks good.
Yeah, exactly. And part of that is knowing up front what are the data points that are really going to inform you and steer your strategic decision making.
Sally?
I think one of the hurdles we can all come across is trying to do too much when it's not necessary, and throwing everything and trying to hit all these things, but there actually might not be what your attendees are looking for. Do you know what I mean? It's got to have value for your attendees for them to engage with the technology in the first place, right?
And I guess answer the question as to why they're there in the first place.
Yeah.
Why are they going to come to that particular
Absolutely.
activation or event?
Yeah, but it's also what you're going to do with that data as well. I'm always kind of going back to the data. So great if you want to check people in for every single session, but then what are you going to do with that, and how are you going to review that data and improve on it afterwards? Because again, you don't want it to be a hindrance, right? You don't want to be getting feedback from your delegates saying, this was actually a barrier for me to being able to fully immerse myself in the event.
So thinking about, obviously, the world we're in at the moment, event tech, rising costs of venues and paying £1 million for a plug socket an event, what are the, if I held you to ransom and said, right, tell me the things you cannot live without in your event tech stack, it has to be this as a bare minimum, what are those essential tools that you we have to have them or our event will fail?
Really good Wi-Fi on site.
Oh, yeah, Wi-Fi. I think that went down here the first day. The Wi-Fi, and that can vary, right, by provider, hotel, conference venue, price.
Yeah, and then I think, I'm on that sort of constant journey towards a single customer view, so that's kind of like the zeitgeist we're aiming towards. But I think when it comes to basics, you want a really sort of simple, straightforward CRM that can house your data, enable you to segment it, enable you to communicate with your invitees, your guests, and follow up with them. And on site, just really, I would say, really seamless check-in registration, so that people don't sort of hit that first barrier and hit friction, and then immediately their mood is impacted, their perception of the event
And your
is
audience
impacted.
are high-level individuals from the tech world as well, right? So I guess they just want to get in and get on.
And to Sally's point, not everyone is tech savvy, especially tech founders, as it turns out. And I think even the tech savvy are overstimulated by just how much there is out there. Even at this event, there's lots going on, and so if it's not really pertinent to you and really clear how that tech is going to help you, you're just kind of going to think I can't be fussed.
Sally, what's your essential go-to tools?
I think again, it's completely based on the company. It's going to be business dependent. It's going to be event dependent on what it is that you need. So, for example, if you're doing a nice kind of personalised, very customer-facing dinner, then you might not necessarily need, loads of badge printing software or anything like that type of thing. From a sustainability perspective, again, I'm going to go back to that. Event apps. I actually still have clients that are coming to me going, no, don't want to use it.
They want to print stuff.
They want to print stuff. They want to print stuff. But again, that's because they know their demographic. And honestly, sometimes, you still go to events where people will put surveys on everybody's chair, and we can help to facilitate to try and digitize that. But some people just don't engage with it. So for certain levels of attendee, that's what they're used to, that's what they like, and they don't want to deviate from that. So I think it's a bit of education.
How do you deal with that situation then? So you're advising one of your clients and they have that demographic where maybe they're less tech savvy, or they've not adopted it, or they really like just to be old school. How do you approach that with them? Do you kind of just facilitate, okay, we'll just keep it like that, or do you try and introduce tools gradually to that event to try and take them on that journey, as opposed to going, wham, we're all app only now and you've got no badges, and how do you approach it?
Yeah, you can do an integrated approach, I think. Bring it in step by step, right? Baby steps are always the best way to educate people and to get them to feel comfortable with what it is that they're using. So little by little, kind of drip feeding it in. But it's experience. If somebody's having a good experience with it and you're rewarding them for that and rewarding learned behaviour, then they're going to have a better experience with it in the future. However, if they try and put something in and it really doesn't work, that's okay. Like, it doesn't all have to be tech all of the time. Some things can kind of still remain analog, and if that's what's working and that's what's making their event a success, then
And that's I guess that's the human part as well, right? You're going back to that. We're all attending events. We're all human, and that's good. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the integrations and the interoperability of tech, because there's one argument that says there's lots of all-in-one tools out there at the moment. There's lots of tools that do very specific features, like we talked about Interprify, like it's a brilliant bit of kit. What's the view of how you use that? Are you looking as organisers, and your clients may vary on how they deal with this, but are you looking for that? Are you looking for best in class? Are you looking for all in one? Is it more just about, can those things talk to each other? What do you look for when you're building that stack to enable things back into Salesforce, enable things back into your probably client CRM, I guess, right? Because they're going to have various things. So how do you manage that? What's your views on that?
I think all-in-one is likely overly ambitious, especially when we're experiencing innovation at the rate that we are. So you'd be holding yourself back if you were only using one tool. I think I'm all for competition. So we saw, Digital Markets Bill amended yesterday, and that being more conducive to competition amongst startups and big tech companies in the UK, which is great, and sort of enforcing proportionality there. So similarly, within each company, we should be sort of looking at all of the options available to us, and amongst our suppliers, encouraging that competition. I'm developing this with this partner, and we want to do this next, and pushing.
They do that to me all the time, by the way.
Pushing your suppliers to be the best they can be, because I think there's benefit for all, and I think when we're seeing things like AI-enabled matchmaking tools and Grip, which is part of Founders Forum Group, we see that app evolve every day and that offering evolve, and we look at, okay, what can we fold in from Grip, and then similarly other tools, how can we leverage them? So earlier this year we worked with British Airways to pilot the software that they've been installing at select airports so far, but it's facial recognition. So you go into the airport to check into your flight, it scans your face, and then you get your boarding pass and move on your way. So we hosted a gala dinner at the Natural History Museum where our guests walked up, had their face scanned, and then they got a little BA FF group boarding pass with their table number. And it was a really fun sort of experiential element. It also got rid of that awkward, when you have VIPs who were like, you should know who I am. And so our team didn't have to do like Devil Wears Prada, study the guest book the night before, which was helpful. But that then was a fun sort of experiential element. It was extra hurdles for us as marketers, because with GDPR we were suddenly collecting biometric data. But it was something where we went out, we got the explicit consent, we tried it out, we built it into our tech stack, and we learned a lot from that. That is now informing what we're planning for 2024. So what are the other ways we can implement facial recognition? When people first download the app, do they have to enter a code, or can it just do a face scan and all of a sudden they're in, because we collect their headshots at the point of registration? So every sort of iteration of our event, we're trying out different tech, and we're pushing our selection of suppliers to be the best they can be. That also is contingent on having really good suppliers who are flexible and who will be a genuine partner to you and develop fun stuff together.
Fun stuff, I like that. Event tech is fun, right? Sally, what do you think?
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think it's really important when you're engaging with suppliers to have that conversation about what is potentially in their roadmap. What do their plans look like, not just for the next 6 months, but the next couple of years, the next 5 years? Like, what's their end goal? And to work with them to, you know, we're advisors to suppliers as well. And we kind of got, this is what I'm being asked for. I need to be confident that you have like a development team that, you know, can actually make this happen. If we're getting asked for something over and over again and it's a really innovative idea and we think it's maybe going to change the landscape of events from a tech perspective, making sure that they're investing in that part of their business and they've got the resource there to be able to look at these new things and that it doesn't stagnate. You know, there are tech companies and event tech companies that haven't invested in any development, and it is just the same product that it was 3 years ago, and there's nothing new or exciting about it or that's fun. But also, again, going back to what you said earlier about not just the user experience but the back-end experience as well, ironing out those kind of glitches. You don't want to be in a stressful situation. So I think a lot of people are in the position where just because of kind of logistics and internal resource, they might have to go for a one-stop solution that covers all of the bases. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right solution. I think everybody should always keep an open mind as to what's out there. And actually, one of the other talks earlier today spoke about putting a plan in place when you take on a new piece of tech about how you're going to get out of that if you need to. Which was something that I was like, oh, I actually hadn't considered that before. And I think that's a really, really good piece of advice, is what does that look like should you come across the need to change it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of event tech providers now are moving largely because of how they're, I guess, backed financially, moving to that ARR model where actually all they really care about is how long are you with me and how much you're going to spend. And it's going to go up every year because of RPI, which has obviously been terrible for everyone this last 12 months, and it's probably not going to get any better for the next 24 months. And I think we're not old guard, right, but we're 9 years in as a business in the world of event tech. I've spent 25 years in tech, and I think one of the frustrations for me is through the pandemic, there was a lot of event tech businesses that came that had never worked a day in events. They just saw an opportunity in a market, and some have done some really cool, innovative stuff. A lot have disappeared. You know, we went from 50, 60 competitors pre-pandemic to 850 during the pandemic, and now we're down to sub 100 again, really. And it's just very interesting to me on the landscape from a, you know, we've always talked to our customers. We go, hopefully Emily can confirm this, but we talk to them about, you know, what are they saying, what's the feedback, what have we done really well. We get customers come to go, we've had this amazing idea for some gamification tool or whatever, they think our users are going to think it's amazing, and we're like, okay, cool. Let's look at it, because actually the stats of what you're using tells us that all they really want is this, this and this. So let's look at the data points that suggest that why you might need that, or is it you've seen something and you think they want it? Should we maybe ask them? Should we maybe talk to your end users and just check they do want to run around a venue for 45 minutes to collect some points or whatever? So I think it's really interesting to me how that, I think many of our peers in the industry, when they don't talk to you guys, like, it doesn't compute to me. I don't get it. I don't understand, because we don't know everything.
I think it's especially difficult when you're in a quite tight sort of industry sector niche and you have specific technology that's available to you. So I used to work for a direct-to-consumer eyewear brand, and there was a very specific CRM that was sort of the incumbent in the eyewear space. And it was a really clunky tool, but there was just no motivation to innovate or upgrade it at all because they had zero competition in the space, and they were not very receptive to the customer feedback.
That sounds like a great market to break into.
So yeah, pro tip. But, I mean, I'm sure it's
we will talk after. Since. I think I can see a new dev team developing.
But I think it's always difficult when you are in those sort of tight niches and there's less available to you that kind of ticks every box, and it's kind of it's never ideal to be sort of repurposing a tool that's for a completely different sort of sector. Sometimes it can be really great. You can get really creative and turn it into something that's bespoke and amazing, but the more bespoke, the more sort of development costs you'll have down the line.
And I guess often you're moving into or moving sideways into a space that maybe isn't what you first intended, and there's already a lot of competition. You know, you look at Zoom doing Zoom. I think Zoom events might be here actually, but you know they're moving into that space because obviously the online thing happened, right? But then equally, anecdotally, that's coupled with we all get tired of Teams, Zooms, Google Meets, sessions, and actually when we get in person, which is what so much of this industry is about, that's when things happen. That's when deals get done, people talk, they learn things, they get that human connection, and I think that's what sometimes we forget. Tech can enable so much great data and points and referencing and insight, but actually it's the humans that then are going to drive all those events, right?
We're big on that at FF. We're all in-person events. You cannot access our events digitally. We did briefly during the pandemic have webinars, and it was sort of the only option for uniting our community. But we really, as soon as we were able to, went back to the in-person event model. And we do sometimes live stream some of our content and make it available to a broader audience, but for the most part, it's highly curated in-person events where we take a lot of care to make sure that that guest list is perfectly shaped and conducive to deal making, interesting conversations, networking.
And you were in the room when this, obviously I can't say anything because we have rules, but you were in the room when this happened, and you know I've been in the room when some of the things happened at the FF, and I'm like, wow, like this, look at the people we've got here, and look at what they're actually making, they're changing things, they're doing things, they're talking.
Yeah. And it's substantive. There's nothing worse than you've spent a whole day at an event and you're like, I don't know if that was a good use of my time. Like, what was it? But if you come out of an event, the return is very, very, very clear. You're going to have a repeat customer. You're going to have an engaged, brand allegiance, and you're kind of off to the races.
So here we go then. For our audience here, how do we future-proof our event tech stack? It's always changing, there's always innovation, there's so many things. Sally, your point from the early session was quite interesting there. How do I get out of it if it goes wrong? I was speaking to a customer yesterday who had a random call from an account manager for something they used in COVID that they haven't used for 2 years, saying you owe us a load of money. And they were like, no, we just did a contract. Oh, it auto-renewed. But they're like, we haven't used you for 2 years, what's going on? I'm like, I just find that utterly bizarre. How does that happen? And obviously there's been a lot of moves in the event industry in terms of jobs. People have moved companies, teams are smaller, some teams are larger depending on the sector they're in. How do we future-proof all that as best we can in such a fast-moving, I think next year we're going to see more innovation around how AI impacts our data sets and things that we do. How do we do that? Top tips.
Attend events like this. Try and keep your network and your knowledge and your peers around you, and have those conversations. What are you doing? What are you finding that's working successfully? Keep an eye on the tech landscape, on the event landscape in general. What's happening with kind of some of the big players out there? What kind of trends they're seeing? And always bringing it back to that human element, I think is. I don't know if you want to.
And I think always bringing it back to the why. So bells and whistles can evolve monumentally over time, but why are you putting on the event that you put on? Why are you bringing together the people that you're bringing together? And what's the objective and what's that key outcome? And sort of having that as your North Star throughout. So new tools and new platforms will come and go. Some will be great and completely revolutionize how you work. Some will be gimmicky and you'll use once and go, never mind. But I think if you always keep your key objective in mind and the why, then you'll be mapping towards, okay, this is all about enhancing that human experience. It's not about overcomplicating it or using tech for tech's sake.
Potentially adding friction into the user's journey or the organiser's journey.
I feel like you read my mind there. We love a bit of Simon Sinek, so always bring it back to the why.
Cool. Well, hopefully we'll get some time for some questions in a minute. Just got your time. I want to ask you both one final question, which is, let's go back to the beginning of our wonderful careers in events. event tech specifically, what advice would you give yourselves now, having been through various providers, various event tech stacks, various different things, that would have helped you back at the beginning? Because there's a lot of people I spoke to that are either new to events or they're going into their first jobs, having done the university route, and they're now looking at, who do I partner with? What do I do? What would be the advice you give to yourself now?
It's a really good question. Don't be afraid. Think of tech as an enabler, and things can go wrong, but things go wrong in fully live events where there's no tech involved, right? If you go to an event and your catering's terrible, then that's going to be your feedback from your attendees. So yeah, always have a plan B as well.
Love it. Yeah, brilliant. Emily?
I think two things. One, whether you're just entering events, just starting your career in events, or you're entering a new company, before you get really into the weeds and bogged down by the systems and the interplay between them and the practices that are existing, at a very high level, look at the big picture and go, what are we trying to do here? And then keep that in mind as you're getting deeper and deeper into the weeds. It can be really easy to go in and all of a sudden 4 weeks in, you're like, oh, well, these are all the processes and it needs to be done because of this. But you have an advantage when you're fresh in that you can look at something and go, well, wouldn't this make more sense? And maybe there is a simplification option. So that would be one. And then two, timelines. Always build in more time than you think, especially when you're doing new things like introducing new systems. It takes a while for teams to get up to speed. It takes a while for your guests, your customers to understand new processes. So give them a lot of leeway and extra time.
Lovely, thank you very much. Where's Matt gone? Oh, hello, my lovely assistant.
I'm here.
Have we got any questions for the team?
Yeah, one quick. Well, I think a couple. There was some that someone mentioned to me as well. If you'd like to ask a question, you can scan that QR code or go to pigeonhole.at and enter ETL 2023. But the question came up to, I think, a point you were talking about earlier. But how do you think enhanced technology will be able to enhance inclusivity? Or have you used technology in your conferences to help facilitate it?
Sally's going to take this one, I can see.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in here. I think it's interesting because it's not quite yet at the forefront of everybody's agenda, but it's going to be, right? It's one of these things that's going to come out, I think, and it's just going to be integral. I know that you said that obviously you do fully in-person events. I always, and with kind of some of the option of live streaming, I think you do need to give people a choice. I think that's sometimes what people want, and looking at having a virtual version or a digital version at least, but also making that event experience not just a moment in time. There are so many events that are just a moment in time, and it's actually making it more of a 365 experience and building a community around your event, and making sure that you can knowledge share and share best practice and everything throughout the course of the year or however long that process needs to be. It is a really interesting one, and I think different people will look at inclusive. There is a handbook out there, I can't remember off the top of my head where it is, but it is like neurodivergence, for example. I think people need to be looking into that as part of their tech stack as well, because it is tech, right? So if you're going to be having sensory rooms or things like that, investing in spaces like this where people can actually go and have that. It's more than just hearing loops and closed captioning these days.
Do you know, there was a really good workshop I was part of yesterday, and it was all about 3D in events, but there was one particularly in a stadium, and they were using that 3D element in their space to reduce anxiety, because people could see how they could get to things. So I thought it was quite a fascinating use of it.
Yeah, there's an example that we came across as well, and it's that pre-event communication where they've used Street View and things like that, or they've kind of used CAD technology to show everybody where every single space is going to be, to get people more comfortable with that. But then it's having that foresight as well to make sure that you're communicating that far enough in advance so people do feel comfortable when they come to the event.
Or even simpler things like event registration and considering neurodivergence there and, you know, how different people are completing it. It's almost like a mini test if you look at the form sometimes. And how can that be structured in a way that is more inclusive? There's more awareness certainly around neurodivergence now. I also think that AI can open up events exponentially. So even, you know, using tools with facial recognition for photos so that as soon as we take photos from an event, it will label them and say, this is this person, and then we can send it to the speaker and they can share the post on LinkedIn within the hour, and then as the event is happening, we're sharing it with the broader world and we don't have that lag time. So it's great to see as AI sort of goes further and further how it can make events more efficient and then how that bolsters inclusivity.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so there's a couple more. What is the most innovative tech you have delivered on a... sorry, that's open. What is the most innovative tech you have delivered on a conference recently to deliver a true, outstanding, memorable experience for delegates? Something exceptional that you've done.
Last year, we partnered with a company called Art Media to hologram President Zelensky into our event from the Ukraine. So,
If you've seen Star Trek, it basically like beams them in. It was incredible.
yeah, so I think now Kris Jenner's hopped on the bandwagon and
Really?
she's done it.
Oh, great. Okay.
I was like, Kris has done it, but we did it before her.
Yeah, President Zelensky. I mean, come on.
But we wanted to use tech to bring Zelensky and his message to our community of decision makers, stakeholders, government, as well as tech founders who could really help and innovate tech that can help Ukraine. And so we did that. It was amazing to sort of film that volumetrically and set up the hologram. It also, from there, we live streamed it to 7 other tech festivals that were happening simultaneously with Founders Forum London. So we were able to get the message out far and wide. And then we also made it into making it more inclusive, made it into an avatar that you could view in 3D on your phone just by scanning the QR code, and anyone could see that at any time and listen to the president's message either in Ukrainian or in English. So that was probably a highlight.
Very powerful, wasn't it? Very powerful.
I don't think I can top that, to be fair. That sounds incredible.
Name drop.
Okay, so the next one, well, it was targeted at Emily, but what tech options have you used for the heat mapping at your event?
So
Awkward.
there's VenuIQ, and this is terrible of me because the company name is escaping me, and there's an email I need to reply to in my inbox from them actually. But there's a heat mapping software that's doing really amazing things. I'm going to find a way to follow up on it. But basically, it has sophisticated heat mapping for events so that you can see in real time the count of people in the room. It's also being deployed in retail environments so that you can see, you know, what is the consumer's typical pathway through a retail space, and therefore where are you putting high value items and where are you displaying merch. That name is escaping me.
Come find you afterwards, I think.
Come find me. I'm going to look at my
somewhere
phone
in your
after
email.
this.
There are a couple suppliers out here that are doing heat mapping technology, so if you do have a little look around the show floor.
I think I know the one you're talking about, but I don't want to name drop it just in case it's not right.
Just go for it.
No, it's fine. I think the heat mapping thing is really interesting, actually, and this is one of the exciting things that's going to make event organisers' lives better, because we have new legislation coming in next year in the form of Martin's Law, Protect Duty.
For safety, yeah.
So kind of safety and looking at that, and I think that's going to be a big game changer for event organisers in actually being able to track the movements more from a safety perspective and actually making sure that they're complying with legislation.
Also, I will just additionally mention Crowd Connected. So Mark's been sophisticating his technology this year and developing hardware, and it's really impressive the how close they've gotten the tracking. So if you're in an event like this, but you have booths that are, you know, really close together, it can actually delineate between those spaces. And I think as we evolve, the accuracy of those gets stronger and stronger, and that's really exciting as well.
There's 60 seconds left, and
What have you got?
one more question. Do you believe that conferences in event planning more and more include the topic of mental health? Not, I guess, totally relevant to the tech of events, but I think relevant to inclusivity of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the human element, right? You know, what some people still aren't comfortable in a space like this. I know a number of our customers who aren't coming because they're not still ready to be around lots of people all at once. They can find it quite overwhelming. So I think that's, I'm not sure how the tech can help that other than making it inclusive and giving them the option to take part from a distance if that's what makes them comfortable, and I think that's what tech can enable.
I think as an agenda item, we see it more and more on our Founders Forum agendas, and we speak about it quite candidly in our Chatham House sessions. There's some really interesting sort of innovation in the longevity space that looks at not only how can we live longer, but how can we live better for longer, so you don't get to 70 and then have declining health for the last 30 years of your life. You're actually living optimally in those geriatric years, and part of that is mental wellness, and it's a huge factor, I think, making people feel comfortable and being as inclusive as possible in your practices leading up to the event and then at the event as well. I think that's much more on event organizers' radars.
Amazing, thank you. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but if we give a round of applause, please, for Oliver, Emily, and Sally. And we will be back in 15 minutes as he opens the next window. For All Talk, No Action, using integration to push the boundaries of digital and hybrid events. So that's in about 50 minutes' time. Thank you very much.